supplies I'm using for the first project are a wooden tray, some wood stain, rope, some black cording, and scissors. And I'm starting off with the wood stain here. This is the early American wood stain. I love this color. I use it on every single project. It is literally the perfect kind of like mid-century medium brown tone. As you can see here, it's just such a great color. And you could do multiple coats if you want it darker, or you can even do like a really light coat if you want it lighter. I love how you can build on this color. So I'm going around and staining this entire wooden tray. And as you could probably tell, my wood tray is a little bit larger than hers because mine is from Joann's. Hers was from the dollar store. So maybe if you could find that one, it's gonna be a little smaller, but I kind of like the size of this one. And I also went in with a paintbrush just to fill any tiny cracks and crevices with the wood stain. The next thing that I did was used my rope, and I'm going to actually loop it around. She just went ahead and tied hers, but I actually wanted to kind of create bindings for mine, which I felt just added a little touch to the mid-century vibe, and it also just gave it a little bit more of an interesting detail. I felt like hers kind of had a very farmhouse aesthetic to it, which is great if you like that vibe, but I kind of wanted mine to have almost a rustic kind of Restoration Hardware Urban Outfitters vibe. Just like a random mixture. So I went ahead, I wrapped this black cording around, and this is how I'm going to be fastening the rope together. So I'm just making sure that I do it very tightly. And I also started with a loop. That way, when I cut the ending tail, I can push the ending tail through the loop, and then you can pull the other end, and it just secures that rope right on the inside to give you a clean finish on both sides. I love that tip for wrapping rope around anything. It just gives you such a nice clean finish, and that finishes off the little wrapping here. And I'm just gonna cut off that excess tail. Next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna find kind of where we want our hanging point to be for the wall, and we're gonna do the same exact thing. So hers was just hung over a nail, just with the rope kind of wrapped around it, but I wanted to actually create a loop and just have a little bit more interest to it. So I did the same exact technique I did on the last one, pulled it through, but keep in mind, you can also just tie it if you want to. I just went ahead and did it like this, just so it matched. I just really liked the binding. I felt like it made it look a little bit more expensive. And then last step of this tutorial or project is to just wrap it around the other end, make sure that the loop is through there, and you're gonna just repeat the process that we did on the first and second one, just to finish off this edge. And once you are complete, you can just cut off any excess rope, and that is your finished hanging shelf. So jumping on into these succulent magnets, I'm gonna use some newspaper, an ice cube tray, Elmer's glue, and then some paint. And I think there's a couple other materials which I'll share throughout. But I started off with half a cup of warm water, and I also added in just like a random amount of glue. Add a good amount though, because you're gonna want it to, of course, be nice and firm once it dries. And I'm basically gonna be cutting up this newspaper into small little strips. I'd probably say they're like 1 inch by 3 inch strips. I just eyeballed it to create some pieces that were big enough to go over the ice cube tray. And you're just gonna dip them in, and we are basically creating paper mache. So I'm gonna place them over the top of one of the little openings and kind of crisscross them over. This was my first try, and I ended up only doing 3 pieces and pressing it down, but I realized after doing this that it just wasn't going to be firm enough. So I actually ended up trying it a couple other ways. So my next try was going to be doing the 3 pieces, but doubling it. So once I did 3, I actually just did the same exact 3 on top of it. And I didn't really like this method either. So I pressed that down. And the reason is because it actually had a lot of openings still. So what I ended up doing was actually fanning them out into like a section of 6. So I created 6 of them into a full circle, which ended up working a little bit better and also making it a little bit more secure. And you're just gonna use your knuckle to kind of press it down into the ice cube tray and just make sure that it fits and forms around. And then you can also use a paper towel to blot any excess glue water out of there, because sometimes you do kind of press a little bit of it out of the newspaper. So you're gonna want these to actually cure overnight, and once they do cure, they're super easy to pop out. You just kind of press around the edges, and they just pop out kind of just honestly like an ice cube would. So once those are all out, I trimmed off any of the excess top portion. I think in the video they folded it all in, but I ended up just trimming off any of the excess. And then I wanted to take it one step further. So I used the Mod Podge hard coat because this is a water safe finish, and I wanted to put it on the inside of our little planters because I felt this would kind of add a waterproof barrier for the succulents in case you did want to water them. So I added that barrier on the inside, and then I used a couple of paints that were kind of a peachy pink tone, and then I also used a gold one, and I painted these on the outside. I did 2 coats and I let them dry in between. And then I also did end up just leaving one as the newspaper because I kind of liked the look, and I picked up these little ceramic disc magnets and used hot glue to secure the magnets on the back. But this is kind of where everything went downhill. So I secured them on the back. I was super happy with how they looked. And then I started adding the succulents into the little potters. And so basically these succulents are from Lowe's. They're just like miniature ones that you can use to probably put in terrariums or things like that. So how I did it was I pulled them out. Some of them came out like this, and then some of them came out in the full like little clumped section. And I used a spoon to just spoon it in there. But the thing that happened, which you guys are gonna see in the final clips in a second here, is that they were just too heavy. Like this newspaper was not secure enough. So on some of the other succulents, I kind of broke up the roots a little bit and got some of the excess dirt off, packed them in there. But when I put them on the actual fridge, the supplies for this project are super minimal. You're just gonna need a glass vase, some faux pearls, spray paint, and a hot glue gun. So I started off with these pearl adhesive stickers, and what I'm gonna do is I realized they literally don't stick on here, so I don't really know how hers stuck on there. So I just placed them around and just kind of had it as a placeholder for now where I wanna put all of the pearls, but that's why I actually used the hot glue gun as well, just to really secure those on. So I went around the entire circumference of this round fishbowl vase situation, and you're basically just going to stagger the pearls. So you're going to do your first row, and then when you go down to your second row, just put them in between each of the pearls, and then on your third row, it's actually going to match up with your first row. But you can really do whatever pattern you want. I just went ahead and followed her pattern, and I ended up doing, I think, about 4 rows of pearls, but you can also definitely alter that. And the next step is you're going to add some hot glue to the back of each of them. But the nice thing is that when you first place the pearl down, it's actually going to leave a little bit of the adhesive residue, so you're going to be able to see where you need to replace it. And I personally found out that adding the glue directly onto the glass object was way easier than putting it on the pearl and then putting the pearl on it, because I literally burned myself like 3 times, so I just put it directly on there. And next we are using some flat white spray paint, and I'm just giving it 2 good coats of this spray paint. You only need to do the outside really, but you can also do the inside if you wanted to. So I went ahead, and this is really gonna blend the pearls in and kind of make it look like a full complete object. And so I did 2 coats of that spray paint, and then I went ahead and pulled out some black spray paint as well and sprayed a little bit of it into a cup. That's just because I had this on hand and it was watery, so I grabbed a hard bristle brush, and I'm actually going to use my thumb and kind of flick back on the brush and create a speckled look on this vase. It gives it a very ceramic look, and that finishes off your planter. For our last project, I actually went out into the yard and looked for a stick and was able to find this one, which is amazing and perfect. You're just gonna want something that has a lot of kind of branches on it. And I was gonna spray paint it gold like they did in their tutorial, but I honestly started spraying this stick gold and it just looked kind of green and dingy. It was not my favorite color. It had like a green tone to the gold, and it just was not working for me. So I actually decided that I was gonna go back and give it a full coat of the white spray paint, which I just love this so much more. And especially if you have a white wall, this would look so great against a white wall, kind of very tone on tone, but you still have all your jewelry hanging off of it, which I just love that vibe. So I went ahead and I gave this 2 good coats of the white spray paint and made sure to flip it over to get every single crack, crevice, and crease of this stick. Next, I have this oak container. This is just an old container that I save because I love using these for my cement projects. And I just cut kind of halfway down, and I'm gonna be cutting off the top portion of this because we aren't gonna need the full container. This is actually going to be the mold for our cement. And this is some cement powder. I just get it in a huge bag at Home Depot for a couple of dollars, and I've had it forever. So you're just gonna mix water in there until you get a nice kind of smooth consistency. And I'm just gonna mix that up, give it a good stir. And next what we're gonna do is we're gonna spoon this into the bottom of our oatmeal container. This literally looks kind of disgusting, and I'm sorry about that, but you know, this is the life we live with DIY. So I'm gonna grab our oat container, kind of tap it up and down. This is gonna get any air bubbles out, and it's also gonna settle a lot of the larger sediment to the bottom of the container, which is gonna make the top look a lot smoother. And I'm pushing my stick after it has dried down into the center. And what I did was I actually just went ahead and taped a paintbrush across the top. That way it had something to lean on while it dried. And once this is nice and secure, you're gonna let this cure overnight. And the next day you can actually cut off the oat container, and that finishes off your new tree branch jewelry stand.